everybody, today we are debating whether or not morality is relative, and we are starting right now. Ladies and gentlemen, thrilled to have you here for this epic debate. I am pumped for this one, folks. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we have got these two gentlemen here, seasoned veteran debaters. They've been in a lot of debates. You see our good old friend, Skylar Fiction, and you see Adam Friended Screen. He is overcoming his fear. He's coming. He's just shy. He's camera shy. There. Thank you, Adam. We're glad to see you, buddy.
Camera shy? What are you talking about?
Very shy. So we are excited, folks. If this is your first time here, consider hitting that subscribe button. We've got a lot more debates coming up. We are excited. We've got Adam Friended's favorite debater, Wotan, is going to be on soon. That's going to be great for a flat earth debate. With that, we are going to get into this discussion very quick. Just want to let you know, if you have a question during this debate, feel free to shoot that question into the live chat. I will dig through, pull it out, and then I will ask those as many as we can during the Q&A. And last of all, our guests have their links in the description. So if you're listening, you're like, I like that. I want more. You can get plenty of more by clicking in that description. You see that description box just down there? That is where their links are. And so we'd highly encourage you. You can check out more content from these guys. With that, we are very pumped to get this ball rolling. Gentlemen, you disagree on whether or not morality is relative. And Skylar, given that you're taking yes, I feel silly I didn't ask beforehand.
It's okay.
Do you want to get the ball rolling, or Adam? It's up to you guys.
It depends. Are we debating is secular morality for cucks? If so, then I will take the affirmative position.
He's always trying to trigger us.
And I will begin, or if it's relative, you should take the affirmative, Skylar. So it's up to you.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I generally believe morals are subjective. I mean, moral relativism, subjectivism, there's slight differences there. But moral relativism basically is the idea that you get a lot of this from culture, your morality. I think the easiest way to kind of see some examples of this is just look at different countries, look how their moral systems are different than possibly your own country you're from. Saudi Arabia is a great example, perfectly moral to separate women from men. And have them eat in different places. The women couldn't drive for the longest time. Under their moral system, it's perfectly moral to execute people that are non-believers. You can look at it through our moral history as a country, where throughout history, morals have changed. You've seen that slavery was a perfectly moral thing to a lot of people at one point. There were abolitionists, people that were fighting it, but there was a point where segregation was completely moral to most people, depending on the part of the country you were in. This is where disagreements come. I think that a lot of morals are taught to you. Usually, your moral framework tends to a lot of time come from your parents. You know, they may start bringing you to church. You might start believing in a Christian foundation for morality. But I think there's a lot of ways that it develops. I think there are things that contribute to it. Obviously, empathy, emotion, external factors, education, intelligence. There's a lot of things that will come in, and of course, another big example, and then we'll get this discussion really kind of going, is even the way people define what morality is different a lot of times. Obviously, the way Christians define the morality, Adam's not a Christian, but I'm just giving examples. Christians will have a different form of morality than Adam might have. I might have a different moral system, might define it differently. We don't even necessarily agree on the definition of morality a lot of times. So I think that also leads evidence to showing you why morals change. They're relative to the culture and to the individuals. That's it.
Well, we began joking around about the flat Earth. People disagree on whether or not the Earth is flat or whether or not it's round. Just because people have different opinions about the shape of the Earth, does it change the fact that the Earth is round?
Sure. The problem is you're talking about morality, which isn't measurable in the same type of concept of like you can measure a flat Earth within science. Sure. I mean, first, I guess you have to define what morality is, and then you'd have to tell me how you're going to measure it.
So morality is a set of rules that binds individuals into a cooperative community.
Okay. What if I don't agree with your definition of morality?
Well, I mean, it's a definition based on the external external forces. So you would have to, I mean, it would be the same thing as disagreeing that the earth is, I mean, you would have to present evidence that that's not. Well, first of all,
No, not really. You're defining morality a certain way, and I need to know why you define it that particular way and why.
well, that's a naturalistic definition of it.
But
That's what morality evolved to do. Morality evolved as a set of rules to combine individuals into a cooperative community. Everywhere you look at morality in the world, that's exactly the function that it serves. So now you're basically taking the position of moral relativism. Now, are you saying that every single moral system is equal?
No, you wouldn't. Well, what do you mean by equal? Like they're all
normally
in the same sense. They're all not objective. I would say, like they're equal in that sense. But in the sense, and the idea of you're saying something is better, I don't know. You would have your own. A person would have their own standard of what they would view as better, right? Like obviously, I think my morals are better than the people in Saudi Arabia who separate women and kill atheists.
Well,
right?
that's my question. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, but that's just basically my opinion on morality. Opinions, you can't, they're not facts. They're not right or wrong. So, just describing how I feel that my system is better it's not an objective measuring system to it.
Well, we can test different forms of morality to see how they affect society. I mean, I would argue that's exactly what's going on in various nations, in various religious communities. These communities are testing themselves against other communities, and they survive or fail based on whether or not the ethic makes people happy, increases human flourishing, all the same things that the secular community would basically classify as morality. Like if you're measuring a moral system on how it affects the members who opt into that moral system, you can very well measure it. I mean, there are all kinds of metrics that you could measure it by. Like nations are measured by GDP and suicide rate, and there's a happiness index even.
Sure. But in a way, this just sounds like moral relativism with extra steps, basically, right? So you're choosing. Hold on.
Go ahead.
Just, what I'm saying is that you choose a standard that feels good to you, like harm or a society thriving, right? Because that's what subjectively feels like the right answer. But there's no why ought I agree with that definition that this is what morality is, besides you just saying, well, this is an objective.
I'm choosing standards that are objective.
Okay, but why? But through subjectivity, because because of your emotions, your opinions, you're choosing a standard in the same sense. Like if all you're telling me is in the same sense that a teacher chooses a standard for the education level for that they're teaching, right, and that a student needs to know a particular knowledge in order for them to pass the standard that the teacher created. Like, yeah, it's objective in that sense. But the ontology of it is still down to what you feel is right and what is wrong and what you appeal to with your emotions.
But something like the happiness index, there is a certain amount of subjectivity to it. But something like the suicide rate, there's not a lot of subjectivity to it, correct? The GDP doesn't have any subjectivity to it.
What do you mean by the suicide rate doesn't have anything to do with subjectivity?
It is objective how many people in the United States killed themselves last year. That is an objective measure.
But aren't we referring to how they feel, why they committed suicide? It's not really relevant how many, the measurement of how many people committed suicide. Like I'm saying, like if you can have a way, all you've done is you've created a standard because you liked it. You like the idea of that.
No, it's scientific study. I mean, it's a standard that sociologists use. It's a standard in behavioral economics.
What are you referring to? What's you're talking about the standard of morality that you're appealing to?
Yes.
So society has created a moral standard. All the people within a society that you just listed, right, have created a moral standard.
Well,
based on criteria they think is the best criteria for how morals ought to be followed.
Our Constitution is a set of ethics.
Sure.
Objective ethics, I would argue.
Well, they're objective, like in the sense now that a book is objective to you, but they're not. They come from humans. The ideas, what we find to be right in the Constitution, these rights are things that human beings appreciate and come from their wants and desires. But
Their
it's not
intuition.
objective. It's not objectively good, in some sense. Well, even intuition, it gets. I had a debate with IP talking about intuition. That gets into like defining what intuition is. I mean, it's just basically it sounds more just like a feeling somebody has that something's right or wrong. That they just feel when they hear something, it's good or bad or something. And these
So
words, I mean, these are all just words. When people talk about morality, it's good, bad. It means a lot of times. I mean, you have stuff like modism, where people just think it's an expression, a way of saying, "Hey, this is what I feel. I feel distaste towards whatever, lying, cheating, whatever moral you want to fit in there."
yeah, but once you measure it, it's no longer subjective.
Well, yes, you've created an objective standard in the same sense a teacher creates an objective standard in a classroom, but your moral the ontology still comes as subjectivism.
Well, explain to me the teacher example. We should iron out too before we get too far. Moral relativism is you saying that your secular morality is exactly the same as Islamic morality. Moral relativism says any morals, like we cannot judge. Any moral system is as good as any other moral system. You know, if the natives decide to practice, you know, bestiality, that's fine because that's their moral system. You know, to each his own.
That's not really what I mean. Moral relativism.
That's what moral relativism means.
Hold on. No. Moral relativism is the idea that morals come from culture. It doesn't. Yes, and to some.
Yeah, but you can't judge it.
Hold on. Well, I could. Yeah, absolutely. I can make judgments. It just means like there's no objective answer to something. There's no moral facts. Is all that means, right? People make judgments all the time. It comes to politics, like the Constitution. You can have an opinion about the Constitution, whether you think it's a good thing or a bad thing. In fact, it would be contradictory of you not to go with your own moral beliefs and not articulate them and to within your life and within society. But the difference between a moral objectivist and someone's a moral relativist, you believe they're facts, it's a moral fact that these things can be correct or right or wrong. There's a way of measuring these things.
There is.
Yes, if you create a standard of measurement, you can go with that standard, but the ontology, once again, where it comes from is you, because you prefer this is the standard.
I'm not creating the standard. The standard exists. It's an evolutionary standard. Survival and reproduction is the standard.
Yeah, but why ought I follow that as the standard?
Where did morality come from?
It's not necessarily even saying something survival isn't necessarily a moral issue necessarily either.
Well, what's the purpose of morality then? What do you think the purpose of morality is, Skylar?
I think it's a way people express their feelings about things and their distaste. It's a modism. I mean, that is what it is.
Those are the moral intuitions, yes. But so you think?
I don't know. What do you mean by moral intuition? I don't understand what you mean by moral intuition.
So you're basically saying morality is like fashion, like it's totally inconsequential. How the moral ethics that you take on in your life is as inconsequential as the type of tennis shoes you decide to wear.
Oh no, they have consequences for my life and how I live them. Like the things that I would find immoral probably would be harmful to me or other people. There's certainly consequences to it.
Right. What is harm? Yeah. What is harm in the?
But that doesn't mean that should be it's not the ought. That's not the ought to why that's the standard, right? Just
why
because
is harm?
I don't say good.
Why is harm part of the standard?
Well, it depends on whose standard you're talking about. I mean, yours, that's what it seems like. Is that your standard is harm? I didn't use harm as a standard. Yeah.
Well, I think harm is one of the standards. And the reason it's one of the standards is because survival and reproduction. If something is going to harm you or your family, that's going to hurt your fitness, your survival and reproduction, your inclusive fitness.
That's not how I would think about it. I don't think about if someone's going to harm my family, it would harm my fitness and survival. It would be more about I love and care about my family, those emotions that I have, and I have empathy, but I wouldn't want them to be harmed. It'd be more expressing a feeling that it would be, like I said, this comes down to you basically choosing a standard, and then you're saying that this is the ultimate standard. This is the standard we should follow. And I don't agree that necessarily survival. I agree that, like, obviously through evolution, we have traits that help us survive and things like that, but that doesn't necessarily connect right to morality.
Why is morality on this planet? Why do we even have morality, Skylar?
people developed it. I don't know. It's the
For
same
what?
reason why.
What purpose?
I don't think everything works like that. It's not always like if things are created by a purpose. We're not talking about a god or something here. Like what is there's all kinds of things our bodies have that aren't necessarily designed with a purpose. It's just how they were formed through evolution.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Uncomfortable laughter isn't an answer, right?
Well, I'm just, it's not uncomfortable. It's funny because you're saying the exact same thing. You're saying that our bodies were formed by evolution, but somehow our morality just, what is our morality didn't come along by evolution?
Well, of course. What we depends on how you define morality, right? Like, yes, obviously our brains, the way they work come through our evolution. Absolutely. But that doesn't make them objective, the morals.
All I really see you doing is I see me defining morality very distinctly. And I see you saying, I don't like that definition of morality. Therefore, morality is subjective.
Well, you didn't even ask me for my definition of morality or anything. We didn't even get into that yet.
What is your definition of morality?
I would say morality is the distinction between right and wrong as it relates to conscious being, right actions being actions that positively affect myself and other conscious beings, and wrong actions being those that negatively affect myself and other conscious beings when it can't be avoided.
Now, how is that any different than my definition?
There are differences because, well, first of all, it's based on emotion and empathy. So the root of it would come from my not wanting to harm people, not wanting to be harmed. That would be the root of it would be a big difference. I didn't just create a standard and then saying that it's objective, not based on your emotions and your opinions.
So let's take your standard then, okay? Let's take 100 people, and we're going to apply your standard to those people, and we're going to take 100 competing members, and we're going to apply a different moral standard to them, okay? A different rule set. Over time, your rule set is either going to facilitate what you said morality stands for, behaving in certain ways that facilitate your well-being and your friends' well-being and your family's well-being. That's basically your definition.
That's like how I would view as positive, obviously. So like the standard that we would be using there to measure like a positive effect and negative effect would be my subjective personal standards. Yeah.
Well, there's also the 100 people that you're with who may not like your standard. They may throw you out of the tribe. They may say, get out of here. You may,
that's why
you may be the first one.
Subjective.
Yeah, you might be the first one kicked to the curb. Okay. But that might be part of the moral system that's forming there in your 100 people. In the other 100 people, you don't necessarily know what's going on. But if we come back in 10 years and the other 100 people are 1,000 people and your 100 people are 13 people, we can say one moral system seemed to facilitate the flourishing of the 100 people that started on the other side.
If you create that standard, if you create that standard of morality. If it's about flourishing,
is.
According to you, that's what morality is, and it could be others too. That doesn't actually mean like there are other people that have different definitions of morality. To a Christian, it is certainly not that position. In fact, I would say the majority of the world, because most of the world is either Christian, is Muslim, or other religions, don't adhere to your moral philosophy. So yes, you can have that moral position and say, this is what morality is, and this is your standard. I appreciate your opinion on morality, but that doesn't make it an actual fact. Doesn't make it objective.
How is my measurement not objective? Tell me that.
Yeah, we're not talking about the measurement. We're talking about
we are. What does objective mean? Objective means you can measure it.
No. We're talking about the ontology, where morals come from. Maybe I should be clear. I'm saying that morals come from us. And
yes, I agree.
Okay, and would you agree that emotion and opinions come into play there?
Yes. Okay, but there's also a prisoner's dilemma type thing that goes on because the objective moral laws are emergent. Like as soon as most societies choose
moral laws?
Yes, societies choose murder as an infraction. Correct?
Right now, in this point in history, sure.
Okay, so we could probably guess that in both the 100 groups of people, our test subjects here, in both tribe A and tribe B, they're both going to be against murder, right?
Well, I mean, pointing to what people think is right or wrong isn't actually an argument to show that objective morals exist, right? They could all be wrong. They could all be right. It doesn't really matter what their
wait a second here. Uh-huh. If we take our experiment like an algorithm, and we say in group A, we're going to have this set of rules, and in group B, we're going to have this set of rules. And we let it play out over 10 years. And we find out that one set of rules, destroyed the tribe, and another set of rules facilitated the flourishing of the tribe. How can you not compare those two rule sets?
Because what you're doing is you're assuming that is the standard. This is the issue.
What does that even mean?
Adam, it's not about measure, because you have basically created a standard which is flourishing, right? The reason you chose that
standard.
No, that's your. I'm saying, but we're talking about you. Well, hold on a second. We're talking about human flourishing. Hold on, Adam. Don't filibuster me, Adam. Don't filibuster me. Don't try to filibuster me, my man. So here's the deal. Now, it actually wasn't. I didn't give flourishing. I talked about positive actions that affect me. I didn't use
what does that mean?
Okay, so now that's a different question, but I want to point out that you were not correct when I said flourish. I never used the word flourishing, human flourishing. You did. So now we're going to go back to your human flourishing. Okay, that's your standard that you have chosen based on your personal opinions and what you like and what your preferences are based on all these different things. It doesn't make it objective. Like I said, the only way it's objective is in the same sense that like a teacher who creates the standard of education in their classroom, what a student needs to know by the end of the year. In that sense, it's objective, but the ontology of it, where it comes from, is still from the person. They create the criteria.
You're saying that the standard is subjective when you and I are both here with the same standard.
We don't have the same standard.
Yeah, we do. Give your definition.
You said
your definition of morality again. Give your definition of morality again, and please. Let's meditate on whether or not it involves human flourishing.
No. Morality is the distinction between right and wrong as it relates to conscious beings. Right actions being those that positively affect myself and other conscious beings. Wrong actions being those that negatively affect myself and other conscious beings when it can't be avoided. Nothing to do with flourishing.
Positively affect. Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
It depends. It can mean a lot of different things. It depends on the context of the particular action, right? So I could say stealing is wrong to a certain degree because I would be taking away somebody's income that they may need. It just depends on the context, what particular morality we're actually talking about.
Okay, so I'm going to use your positively affect instead of flourishing, okay?
Okay.
So and I'm going my position. I'm going to but the experiment still holds true. The tribe A and tribe B with 100 people, we say
but you understand
that
that's not the
list
issue.
of rules. And you keep acting like the list of rules is my intuition, and it's not, because the list of rules could be anything.
Well, even if I grant you this, right, that we have the same moral system, it doesn't mean they're both not subjective.
Well, the measurement is what makes it objective. My measurement is what makes it objective.
No, being mind independent is what makes something objective within morals. That things are moral facts.
Well, it would be emergent. I don't know. Like if we run this experiment 100 times and get the same results over and over again, I don't know how you would call that subjective. Like the test is
objective, but that your morals aren't.
Well, the morals are inside the system. Like the morals are part of the system. Tribe A has moral list A.
Yes, I get
Tribe B has moral list B.
I get it. Your preference is that the definition of morality should be flourishing, right? I get that. That's your moral preference.
Well, I like positive. I like positive effect better.
You do now? I'm glad I moved you over.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing, basically. I mean, we're arguing semantics here. How is it?
But still, even if I grant you that, that's fine. I'll grant you it just for the sake of the argument. It doesn't mean that morals are objective. Morals being objective would be mind independent. That something would be morally right or immoral, regardless of human beings' opinions and emotions. So, by definition,
there is an emergent property.
Please explain a little more.
Well, we're not talking about the intuitions of a single individual, because there's 100 people in each tribe to begin with. So those 100 people will all have different moral intuitions. Obviously, within the tribe, they'll have to come to some kind of consensus. And I don't know that consensus would be something that emerged. It wouldn't be, the process of morality is kind of taking subjective intuitions and turning them into an objective moral standard.
Would you agree that if you had a tribe of 100 people and it was their definition of morality that people should only live to the age of 30, and then they kill everybody at the age of 30, and everybody believed in it, everyone thought this was the right thing to do, would it be objectively morally correct to kill everybody at the age of 30? If they define
if that
morality,
if that was the moral standard of tribe A and tribe B did not have that moral standard, I believe tribe B would outsurvive tribe A undeniably.
Let's say that wasn't their standard. Like, their standard isn't thriving. Their standard is whatever. It doesn't even have to, it could be anything. Whatever, a standard that doesn't agree with your standard, basically. So let's say we can less complicate this. Let's just say there's a standard that you have a disagreement about, right? But all of these people believe that this standard is the correct standard they should go to. Does that make it objective?
Not in my system, because we have to measure. We can't. Surely you don't believe that what one person comes up with could be objective. That's the definition of subjective. Like, what makes it objective is it's tested over time.
Well, but the key to this what you're arguing is that you've created the standard in which you would test for, right? What if somebody has a different standard and they're using a testable system for that standard, but it doesn't agree with your standard?
What would it be? I don't know what it.
I mean, it could be. It could be anything. I mean, it could be anything. The point is, though, people can have a different standard than thriving, right? It doesn't have to be human thriving. That's the subjective definition you chose for morality, based on your emotions and your opinions. So, like, they don't have to necessarily.
That's everybody's object. That's everybody's.
Of course,
standard.
that's why I believe in moral subjectivism, moral relativism.
Well, wait a second. You're confusing the point here. I don't think we disagree.
Mm-hmm.
Every single tribe wants they want to thrive. That's the whole point of society. Do you think there's a society that doesn't want to thrive? I mean, often they're thriving
how they define thrive. I mean, it depends on, like, they might consider a society isn't thriving if you have atheists among you, like Saudi Arabia. So they may choose to execute people and then say, hey, the way that our country is going to thrive is to eliminate the atheists or gay people or whatever. It's the same thing in the Old Testament, the Bible. God eliminates and separates the people in order for his culture to thrive. So it just depends on, like, how far you take that word thrive to, right? It doesn't necessarily just mean survival as far as that goes. It could mean thriving within a particular culture of values that they want.
So we agree again. The different moral communities will have different ideas of how to achieve thriving, but they still want to thrive, even by your own definition.
Well, I mean, if you mean thriving in the sense of killing gay people and atheists in Saudi Arabia, you can define that as thriving, but it doesn't really seem like it's thriving to the people they're executing.
Right, but they are attempting to strengthen the community by eliminating dissenters.
But they're not actually strengthening the community, right?
Okay, so that is a point of disagreement, and this is why we test morality, because they're competing against other communities that don't have this rule. They have a different algorithm that's running. But I'm just saying that once you let those algorithms start running against one another, we can objectively measure them. We are objectively measuring them. We're objectively measuring them right now.
The thing is, it's not about how you can objectively measure something. It's about where it comes from. The morality comes from
why?
You as a person.
No, but wait a second.
I mean, there's different theories. I mean, there's different theories throughout why morality exists, but it also depends on how you define morality. Because, like I said, there's 100 different definitions for people to define what morality is.
Your intuition, though, does not make the objective moral standard. You could be wrong.
I don't know what intuition are you talking about?
Well, you would argue that the people in Saudi Arabia that have the moral intuition that we should go out and kill atheists are wrong. I would argue the same.
Well, I would find them wrong under my moral system, but not like in the sense of moral facts. That they're wrong.
What do you mean under your moral system?
My personal subjective moral system.
Right. Based on what?
Based on my emotions, opinions,
your
empathy,
moral intuition.
Much more complex. Well, what do you mean by a moral intuition?
Your emotions are moral intuitions. They're
so yes.
Your instinct that this is right or wrong. Yeah.
Okay, so an emotion. Okay, that's moral subjectivism.
Sure, But
So
those intuitions that you have do not create the moral standards because you are one individual among many. We agree
no,
there, correct?
I create my own standard in many cases.
Right.
I've gone against what others have taught me. So
Sure,
no,
but
we do. I think we do create. I think some of it is relative to a culture. There's no doubt.
do
Uh,
your intuitions change? If you had the intuition that murder's just fine, like you're fine and dandy with murder, does that change the law?
I've had morality change. Well, laws aren't necessarily moral when you talk about legal systems or anything like that. I mean, segregation was completely legal. It didn't make it necessarily moral under people's
Murder is
rule
an
system.
objective standard, though.
I don't know what you mean by that. It's an objective standard.
We can
I know
look at,
I know what murder is. I know what you would define as murder. But even that, even how people define murder can be differently. Somehow, in certain situations, kill. Because really, what you're talking about is the action of killing somebody, right? Murder
is
is the
murder
idea.
illegal?
Yes, and
Is that
so is
subjective?
marijuana in a lot of states. It's what do you mean? We're not
Is
talking
that
about
is
legal
that
system. Hold on,
subjective?
legal systems and morality are two different categories. It's not the same thing.
Why?
It's like asking why are apples and oranges different? Because
Well,
they have
no,
different properties.
laws aren't. Are you saying that it's illegal to murder people, but it's not immoral? Aren't they? Isn't it both illegal and immoral?
Like I said, let's do this. Was it immoral to have do segregation yet it was legal?
What? But
Was it immoral the fact that someone could get arrested for eating at a black person get arrested at eating at a white cafeteria or at a white counter? Just because something's legal doesn't make it moral or vice versa.
Right. You want to change the objective standard, is what you're saying. I'm saying that the law. I'm saying that the law is a form. You just
meant by that.
The law is a form of objective standard. It is.
But it's not a moral standard. It's the standard, the objective standard it's just not. I'm sorry. Okay, then you would have to argue that it was perfectly moral to have slaves at some point because the law said that you could have slaves or that segregation was perfectly okay. The law does not dictate morality.
I would argue that the slave moral rule is wrong. That the 100 people that have the moral norm that it's okay to enslave people, and the 100 people that don't have that moral norm, the 100 people that don't have that moral norm will out compete, out flourish, their futures will be positively affected.
I agree that that's your standard, that your subjective standard that you created is flourishing. And that's why I get it. I get it. It is, but I mean, that is the system that, because of your emotions and your opinions, that you went with.
Do you understand, Skylar? It seems very simple to me, and it seems like you're almost working not to understand this. At the individual level, things are subjective, correct? Maybe we're disagreeing about what subjective and objective means.
I don't. What do you mean by? You need to clarify your question.
Well, whether or not vanilla ice cream is the best ice cream in the world is subjective, correct?
That's an opinion. Yes. Yep.
Yes. Okay. Is murder illegal?
Yes.
Is that subjective?
Like I said, legal systems are different from moral systems. It's objectively true. I don't even know why I don't even need to throw the word objectively in there. It is true that a legal system, it is illegal to murder. But like I said, the criminal system is a different thing than a moral system. It's just not the same.
I'll ask you again. You're not answering.
I did actually.
I
did say that.
Is murder objective? Is murder objectively illegal?
It's illegal. Why do you need to throw the word objectively in front of it? What would be the difference between objectively illegal and illegal?
Well, it's not subjective. I can't go into a court of law and say, oh, it's just my opinion that murder is okay.
Okay, but you don't need to say that. You just say murder is illegal because it's a fact that murder is illegal.
So through this process, how did murder being illegal become objective?
Any type of law that I don't know. What do you mean become objective? We're not talking about morality here. Like things become illegal because we have a Congress that passes laws and people vote for people that best represent their values.
So it's a process of it's a process of consensus, correct?
Yes, when it comes to laws, but once again, that's not the same as morality.
Well, how is it any different with morality? It's the same process.
Because what you're talking about is you're talking about a legal, like, once again, we go back to my example, right? You going to keep me answer about the murder, right? But I give you an example of the legal system and where it was moral, it's not moral, it was moral to those people, and it was legal for them to be able to have separation of blacks from whites in education in school. Did that because it was is that objective in that sense? Was it objectively morally correct to be able to segregate whites and blacks? It was legal.
You keep jumping to places where the law and morality have diverged.
Yes, they've changed because that's what happens over time.
It's not an argument.
Changes.
It's not an argument against what I'm saying. Because
well, no, it is an argument because I'm showing you how morality changes over culture, time,
and why does it change? Why does it change?
Because people change.
And why do they change?
Depends. There's all types of reasons they change. Sometimes it's all. Let me give me an example, right? So when I was a Christian, I was just taught that homosexuality was immoral.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I was just taught it. I believed it. I read the Bible. This is what I was taught. That's why I believed it. Right? Now, what changed? Well, I started reading a little bit more and understanding the history of the Bible and started understanding all the contradictions. And then I was able to change my thought process because I looked at it. I was like, well, I assumed that this book was correct. And I assumed what people were teaching me was correct. And therefore I changed my moral position based on those type of things. Right. So there's a wide variety of reasons. It isn't just human thriving or flourishing. There's a lot of different reasons morals change.
Now, when you changed your mind, did the objective law change?
I don't know what you mean by that.
Well, there was a time when gay marriage was illegal. Now it's legal.
Okay,
I'm assuming you changed.
I said homosexuality, but I get what you're saying now. So you're talking about gay marriage now. It confused me because I'm like, what are you talking about? Like objective rule law? I don't.
Why do you think gay marriage was illegal?
Because Christians thought it would go against God's moral nature, which is what they believe to be morality, and they thought that homosexuality goes against God and His nature. Therefore, it was an abomination, and we shouldn't be giving them any type of rights or going against the will of God.
Now, your subjective understanding of that moral norm was that it was incorrect. You thought that it was wrong.
Under their standard, what they've articulated.
Well,
I didn't think it was wrong. No. See, it's kind of twisted things a little there. What I'm talking about is the standard they have articulated to me. Their standard is the Bible and what God's nature is. I'm just going by what they've told me.
Skylar, this is so simple. It's so simple.
Apparently that's not, though.
You at one time believed that homosexuality was wrong and that the moral norm of gays not being able to get married was correct. Am I wrong about that?
Yes, because under that, I was taught that under God's moral system, His nature. That's.
Who cares what you were taught? What did you believe?
That's what I believed. I believed based on what I was taught.
I'll ask again.
It had nothing to do with thriving or anything. It had to do with what I was taught and the beliefs that I had. The belief where it came from was the idea I thought the Bible was true and that it was the inspired word of God. And if the Bible says it's true, that's why I believed it.
I'll ask again. You believed that homosexuality was a sin and that the moral norm against gay marriage was correct. Well,
even as back then, I still didn't support I still thought gays should be able to marry. I thought about the separation of church and state. I was more libertarian back then. But if we're talking about homosexuality, which was the example that I gave, I was talking about homosexuality in general. And how I was,
There are three positions here, Skylar. You thought you agreed with the moral norm. You disagreed with the moral. You disagreed with the moral norm, or you didn't care. You were apathetic. You had no opinion whatsoever. Which one of those is it?
I think I articulated it. I think I said that I agreed with the church.
Okay, so you agreed with the moral norm that gay marriage should be illegal, right?
No, it wasn't gay marriage. Wasn't the example?
Why is this so difficult?
You keep going to gay marriage because I don't know why you're going to gay marriage. because saying why is this so difficult is an argument, right?
Gay marriage
I know you're the one who brought up gay marriage.
Dude,
I
was
didn't bring up
gay marriage illegal?
I was talking about homosexuality.
Was
that was
gay
the example
marriage
I gave.
illegal?
Adam, yes, gay marriage was illegal.
Is that objective?
What you're doing is you're straw manning my position.
I'm not straw manning your position. I'm asking you a simple question. Was gay marriage illegal, and is that objective?
Now you're just being redundant and you're repeating yourself. I've answered your question. I said it was illegal. My original point, when you asked me for a thing that I changed morally, I gave the example about homosexuality. You're the person who brought gay marriage in this. The legality of gay marriage is irrelevant to the actual point.
I'm trying to make a very simple point here. Okay.
Well, do better, because it's not coming across that simple.
Well, sometimes it's the listener.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
I don't know how clear I can make this.
Maybe make a better argument. It's not really about being clear. It's maybe about saying it in a different way, and trying a different way, because this one's not working for you.
Well, play along with me for a second here.
All right, I'm playing. All right, let's do it.
So you never believed that you always thought gay marriage shouldn't be illegal. That's your position.
I don't know. Yes, I didn't think it should be illegal. I can't think of a time, but I thought homosexuality was immoral, but at the same time, I also thought the government shouldn't make laws against it.
And that's a subjective interpretation, correct?
What do you mean? A subjective interpretation of what?
Oh my God!
I don't know what you mean. I'm sorry that
you're the one arguing for subjectivity here. That was your own personal opinion.
I mean, are you asking my moral position? Well, obviously.
Well, I'm asking. How is your moral position different?
You asked me a moral position. Then you're like, is that your moral position? It's like Captain Obvious, obviously.
Skylar, how is your moral position any different than your regular position?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't know what the redundancy in asking the question again. Like you're like, so you found it a moral subjectivity? Well, yeah, that's my moral position. I mean, do we have to clarify that?
Well, at this point in your life, when you felt gay marriage should be legal,
I don't know.
And gay marriage,
yeah, it's. There was no point where I thought gay marriage should be illegal. No, you're the one who brought up gay marriage. I brought up homosexuality, Adam. Adam, you're the one who brought up gay marriage.
Back up the tape.
Anybody could watch this.
I brought up homosexuality. homosexuality. How does homosexuality affect people if not outside of gay marriage?
No. You see, but you brought up the gay marriage aspect.
Well, there was a time when I guess even homosexual sex was illegal. We could go to that one. Is that a better one? Do you want to go to that one?
I mean, it's still illegal in some states.
Okay. And you would think that's wrong, correct? Your personal
on my moral system, yes.
Your personal opinion
moral system, I would find that it would be wrong. Okay.
Is against the objective standard.
When you say objective standard of a legal system or a moral system?
The legal system.
Okay. Yes. My opinion is against the objective.
If you want to talk about, if you want to talk about objective standards within moral systems that aren't legal systems, we can talk about Christianity or Islam or any one of the things where they have, you can't eat pork. It's not illegal not to eat pork, but it is against the objective moral standard of whoever makes that the objective moral standard. But that objective moral standard comes about through a process called consensus.
Is it objectively morally wrong to smoke weed in a state where it's illegal?
Yes, if it's against the objective moral standard, it can be separate than your personal intuitions about the thing. That's what I'm getting at here.
No, I'm talking about the legal. Is it, if something is illegal, like smoking marijuana in Florida, is it also immoral to smoke marijuana in Florida?
It is the objective moral standard that is illegal. Your intuitions, your subjective intuitions about it are that moral standard is incorrect. And therefore,
you're not really answering my question. Is it immoral to smoke marijuana in a state where it's illegal?
Well, that's
yes or no.
Not for me, my own personal moral. No, of course not. It's no.
Oh, your own personal moral system.
Right. But this is what
just want to say it's your own personal moral system, of course, because everybody has different moral systems. They have different definitions.
It doesn't
of morality.
change the fact. It doesn't change the consensus process one bit. You're laughing. I don't even know why you're laughing, because a bunch of people have subjective moral values doesn't change the objective consensus of the group. It doesn't change it. And your subjective moral values don't change the objective consensus of the group. And the objective consensus of the group is an emergent property. The 100 people in group A, in tribe A, and the 100 people in tribe B will have different objective moral systems that emerge through this process of consensus. Those moral systems will be tested in the world against each other. Christianity is a form of moral system that's being tested right now against secular moral systems, against secular humanism, or whatever you call it.
But by your definition, basically, you could just, if it's a consensus, it was a consensus that slavery was completely moral, to own people as property. And under that, they in fact, it helped them thrive in a society, they might argue. Which we say the American, we'll say Southern Americans who own slaves. So, I mean, that would be one example.
Okay.
But basically, they could argue that this is helping thrive by having manual labor that can pick crops and produce money. They could argue that they're feeding the slaves. But if there's a consensus that where all these people think that this is moral and they think that this is how they define thriving, right? You would have to argue that that's an objectively moral correct thing, is owning people's property, slavery.
I would, first of all, who won that argument? If the South was tribe A, the 100 people in tribe A, and the North was tribe B, who won? Which of those tribes came out on top?
Well, the reason they won, it wasn't because of an argument of ideas. It was because of technology and the railroads. The North won because they had all control of the railroads and they had control of the industry. I mean, that's true. This is really, and in fact,
are you saying that they outcompeted? Are you saying that they outcompeted the South? Are you saying they outflowed the South?
Not on
the positive effect of their moral system was.
You're confusing. It's not about they didn't have a war of ideas. They had a war of actual physical battle. And the North had the railroad systems. What the South had, why they did so well, is they had good military generals that were much better than the Northern military generals. They always had the supplies in the North. They always knew that the North was going to win because they had the railroads and they had the supplies. It was just a matter of time, and they had poor planning on the North. North had shittier generals. South had better ones. So it wasn't a battle of ideas, like which idea is better. It was might makes right in the end. Obviously, I agree that slavery is not a good thing. I'm happy about the way it turned out. But had the South had the railroad systems, had the military, you make the same argument with Nazis. If Germany had not invaded Russia, there's a very good chance that they could have probably taken over all of Europe and probably most of the world. But they made a mistake, and it became about physical power, not about arguing ideas.
Well, I completely disagree, but I think we can move on.
You're talking about the military power you disagree with?
I think my argument for objective morality is clear. I think it's completely clear. So, do you want to move on to Q&A? I don't know. We've been going for a long time here.
We can go to Q&A, but first, I've been wanting to test this for the longest time, whether or not.
Who is your daddy and what does he do?
Can you guys hear that?
No, not at all.
Hold on, I have to see.
I slightly heard something.
Hey, I got a couple super chats that I'll get to here as well.
Okay, I just found out we could use a soundboard on here. Oh my goodness. Oh, I've got an Arnold soundboard. I just have to figure out how to get you guys to hear it, because I'm playing Arnold Schwarzenegger quotes. So this is like...
Where is she?
This is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
I'll call you back.
Okay, 1 second. We'll go to Q&A. Here we go. Thanks for your super chat. Totally appreciate it. From Steven Steen, who says, is Adam crying yet?
No, not crying. Sorry.
Oh, Adam, you take it so serious. Okay, Steven. No, it's okay. He was crying a little bit earlier, Steven. But next up, Steven Steen, thanks for your super chat. He says, a well-dressed James? Merry Christmas to me. Okay, that's, gosh, Steven.
That's a President Odd one on rep.
He's, that's very good, Skylar. Steven would like that. Next up, Ronald Madanka, thanks for your super chat. They said, Adam is lying, always wrong.
Oh, okay.
They asked Adam. They said Adam is lying, always wrong.
What does that mean? What am I supposed to respond to that?
Yes. Okay. Well,
Oh,
I think they're trying to. I think they're saying. Do you get what I think they're saying? Like, are you a hard deontologist about lying?
They're asking me, is lying always wrong? I thought they were saying Adam is lying.
Oh, no.
And he's always wrong. I'm like,
Oh.
okay, F you. Is lying always wrong? Well, the objective moral standard that I set up between tribe A and tribe B, this is how morality evolved. This is what's going on. And I would argue that in cultures where honesty is a virtue, that those cultures will probably foster more trust and more cooperation, which accumulates over time and will make those societies outcompete societies that are distrustful of one another. This is why I think different nations break down over time and fall into civil war, into chaos, because they don't trust is no longer a virtue. So I think lying is well, obviously there's the outliers, like the Nazi that shows up and wants to weed out the Jews hiding under your bed. Obviously, I would say lie your ass off in that situation. But as a moral norm, yes, lying should be a prohibition.
You got it. Thank you very much. Next up, super chat from Ronald Bedanka. Oh, we got that one. Thanks for that. Next one is James Anderson. Thanks for your super chat. He asks, go team Skylar. You got a fan out there, Skylar. He said, for Skylar can do all things through Raptor Jesus who strengthens him. Mm-hmm. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory. Raw men. Apparently you have a follower.
Under's claws. Raw men.
We appreciate you guys being here. The brand new religion reminds me of Richard Madsen. Richard, hope you're doing well out there, you crazy son of a gun. All right, Stupid or Energy, thanks for your super chat. She says, seems like there's a confusion between universal and objective. Can each of you tell me the difference?
Sure.
Well, yeah, go ahead, Skylar.
No, I would just say universal would mean that everyone has the same exact moral system, or a particular moral, depending on if it say lying was a moral, it'd be a universal thing if everybody believed lying was wrong. And then objective is basically the concept of mind independent, regardless of opinions and emotions. Some kind of moral would be either moral or immoral, or right or wrong, correct, incorrect, however you want to use those terms.
Gotcha.
Yeah. There are things that are objective that aren't universal, like the atmosphere of the earth is objective. The mixture of oxygen and nitrogen to whatever else is in there is an objective thing that we can measure today. It has changed over time, so it's not universal. It's not timeless. I hear a lot of people conflating objective and universal. They're not the same thing.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. Next up, Ronald Madanka, thanks for your super chat. It clicked. Okay. They said, this is simple. Morality is based on harm. Least amount of harm is moral. I think this is for you, Skylar.
Say that again. What was it?
Ronald.
Sorry, I got distracted.
Well, I could be wrong, because, they might be challenging Adam's ethical theory, but they might be challenging your meta ethics. So they say, this is simple. Morality is based on harm. Least amount of harm is moral.
If group A's moral system produces less harm than group B's, obviously they're going to be thriving more than whichever group has the most amount of harm. So yes, I agree. Harm is a essential component in developing moral systems.
I would say there's certainly people who find harm as their standard of morality.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You got it, dude. Next up, thanks for your super chat, Genius Tracks. They said, conflate morality with, quote unquote, that which is conducive to survival, and we can objectively evaluate any action with a reductio, but the conflation is subjective. What do you think of them apples,
Okay. I have no idea what they mean, but
Gotcha. Okay. You betcha. Stupid Whore Energy, thanks for your super chat. She's a feisty one. She says, I can pick an arbitrary section of space as a unit of measurement, call it an inch. I can make objective measurements based on that. Why can't I do that with morality, Skylar?
oh my God, stupid whore energy's on my side. You're going down, Skylar. You're going down.
Listen, I said that if people can choose whatever they want as their standard of morality, it's fine. And then basically they're arguing objective in the same sense, like I said, a teacher who creates a standard in a classroom. You can create objective standards if that's all you're doing. But I'm saying that where this all comes from is you and your emotions, your opinions, empathy, blah, blah, blah. All the
What
stuff
is the example that you're using here, Skylar, of the teacher in the classroom is a good one, because one teacher creates an objective standard and another teacher creates a separate objective standard.
Mm-hmm.
And one class of students goes on to cure cancer and the other group of students goes on to be derelicts. Okay. Which teacher produced the better standard?
The problem is you're framing morality as the idea of thriving, and I'm not. What I'm saying to you is that is your.
Oh my God!
It is. That's what you're measuring. You're measuring the thriving and saying thriving is the standard. And I'm saying is the standard that you created comes from you based on your emotions and opinions, the subjectivity. So
what is your standard?
Myself, my emotions, my opinions.
Your standard is the same standard as mine. What's James's standard? What's everybody's standard?
Well, then your morals are subjective. If it's your own personal standard that you created.
I don't. We should read my super chats. My super chats are hilarious. Like nobody's understanding how you can't get this, Skylar. You're a smart guy, Skylar. You should be able to get this.
Let me tell you this is actually a terrible kind of argumentation to do, is just to be like, you don't get this. I don't understand how you don't get this. It's actually kind of condescending to Adam. You can do better than that.
Yeah, I apologize. I apologize.
Be a little better how we talk to each other.
Yeah.
I tried to be fair to you. I'm saying I give you a little digs a couple times. I'll acknowledge it, but
I didn't mean to come off as condescending, Skylar. I didn't mean to come off as condescending.
That's fine. And the thing is, we can disagree, but like I just find that this is the same kind of thing I get into the theist, and it just doesn't.
Well, you keep saying that because I have an opinion that is the same as the consensus, that my opinion is subjective, and it's frustrating because I don't understand. Like that's like saying because I believe the Earth is round, that's just my opinion. Because there are people that disagree. No, I'm saying that there's an objective standard that we can measure by. And my opinion is in sync with that objective standard, that consensus.
No, what I'm saying is your morality is an opinion.
What like other, aside from flourishing, what would another moral system be aiming for?
Sure. I mean, Christianity isn't aiming for thriving and flourishment. Like it's about God and worshiping God and being that oneness with him, being in so it's a completely different type of moral standard, when in fact, I mean, if you look at the Bible, I mean, God obviously in many situations doesn't care about a thriving culture or something like that. So I mean, Christianity would have a completely different definition than you would. 1 billion people on the planet. So
you're saying that the standard for Christianity is not thriving? I mean, they've developed a moral system where you can literally live forever, and you're telling me they're not interested in thriving.
No, that's not the context of what it is. We're not talking about this. We're talking about life and living on Earth. No, their moral system is about worshiping God. That basically is about a relationship with God. That's the ultimate goal. It's not about thriving. Because if you could die early, whatever, your soul will get to go to heaven with him. But it's your foundations are different. It's not. If a
person dies in their teens and another person lives for eternity, which one is thriving longer?
Thrive? They're not living longer. I don't know. When you say thrive, you mean existing just in some type of state, basically. But it's not. But that's not what the Christians won't tell you that the reason they worship God is so they can have eternal life.
It doesn't matter what they say. This is science.
Religion isn't a science. So you can't apply these scientific ideas to the Christian religion. What they would argue, their doctrine is that it's about a relationship with God and loving and freely loving him back. Basically, it's not necessarily about thriving or being saved. In fact, that would be very selfish. I would view as very selfish reasons for it.
We're gonna try
Why
to.
do you?
We got to try
Yeah,
to get
go
back
ahead,
into
James.
these Q&A really quick. Let's see. Trying to remember who that last question was for. I think it was for Skylar.
I think
so-
we both answered it. So
Okay. But the Holy Spackle, thanks for your super chat, just came in. They said, tell Skylar wearing hats inside is dishonest.
It's true. That's what people say.
I don't get it.
Someone said I have it. There was a thing, James, a long time ago where a guy named NeoCloud said that I was a dishonest person because I wore hats inside. And we had a big movement that a lot of people came to my defense, and we had a big hat day that we celebrated through Google Plus back in the day, and people made videos supporting my hat, and we called them hat haters, HH. So
Go
all those
on.
hat haters out there, hate is gonna hate. That's all I can say. That's all I can say about that. Raptor Jesus would not want you to hate hats. In fact, he believes all heads should be covered
Okay.
with these kind of hats, a particular kind of hat. So
You got it,
Understood.
dude. That's an awesome story. I love that. It's funny the different types of people you meet out there. So I like it. And thanks so much for your question. Iron Charioteer, you're going to kill me. I just want to try to get, ideally, one question in from everybody before I read all 20 of yours. So forgive me, okay? So I'll read the first one from you. I'll try to come back to your other ones. But they said, wow, does Adam believe, by the way, he didn't really send in 20. So he says, wow. He said, wow, does Adam believe in objective morality?
yeah, I'm a moral realist. I believe in moral facts. I believe the morals are emergent, though. I don't believe that they're like properties of the universe.
Gotcha. We appreciate that. Next up, Johnny Drive-By. Thanks for your question. They said, but that is only describing it if morality, maybe this is like a sentence fragment at the start. I don't know. Let's say. So they said, if morality were objective, why can't we apply it to lions where the male eats the young to help survival of his genes?
Well, I don't think lion morality would be good for humans. And I think we could, I guess if we did use that as a standard for lion morality versus human morality, we have vastly outcompeted lions because lions are a very small population on the earth compared to human beings.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. Next up, the real non sequitur. Thanks for your question. They said, is murder in self-defense immoral?
It's not murder if it's in self-defense. Murder is the unlawful killing of a human being.
You got it.
See, and this is one of the interesting things about it's just how people define because really what it's talking about is just killing somebody, right? The action is killing somebody. Whether it's murder is intent, right? And what people define is proper intent, right? And it's all comes down to your personal opinions and your will, your how you feel about that situation. Do you some people would argue the people in Saudi Arabia that execute atheists, they would say they wouldn't even call it murder. They would just say it's perfectly just to behead atheists, or even I believe they kill Christians too sometimes over there. But they wouldn't define it as murder. They would say, no, this is just justified killing. The same thing Christians do in the Bible, morally justified killing. It's not murder when God harms children, but it's all definition game.
You got it. Thank you very much. And very excited. Stupid Whore Energy has a follow-up. She says, thanks for your super chat. She says, is that the fact that I okay, it's not what she said, is that the fact that I am possessed by Pizzazu moral or immoral? So for those of you who haven't seen the Ghostbusters, or maybe if it's been a while, that was the antagonist in the second movie.
Definitely moral. I'm going with moral.
I don't get
Nothing increases human flourishing like being possessed by a demon.
We appreciate that very much, Sarah.
The new Ghostbuster movie dropping here soon.
Oh, snap.
Next summer.
Can't get enough of them Ghostbusters. And where is it? Want to let you know, Nathan Thompson, we have just arranged a debate For those of you who are fans, nobody's a bigger fan of Nathan Thompson than Skylar Fiction, though. Big time Flat Earth fan. They are going to, basically, Nathan Thompson is going to debate none other than Praise I Am That I Am. So that will be, he called him out during the debate. Nathan Thompson said, I want a piece of him. And I said, Praise, you up for this? And he's like, yeah, of course I am. So anyway, we're really excited about that.
Hey, James, is there time to answer some questions from my chat? I don't know if we're winding down or not.
Shoot them over here. Let's see what we got. I got until, I promised Skylar we'd end at 9, what was it, 11?
Yeah, we have like 10 minutes.
11 Eastern sharp.
Are you done with questions? I think Skylar, I think there might be some questions over here for Skylar too.
Let's see. Because we haven't had a ton for Skylar, have we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see.
Max says, I have to go to bed, but note, I support this type of content. Please post and leave up so I can watch later. Yes, I will definitely do that. Max for $2 says, disagreement makes no difference. That's true to the objective moral standard. You can subjectively disagree but it doesn't make any difference to the objective moral standard. Him's sake for $5 says, why can no one hear what Adam is saying? Is a scientific approach too much to handle? I think that's aimed at you, Skylar.
That is funny.
I don't know what you want me to do with that. Like, listen, basically, I get it. It's your opinion. Adam's right on this.
Well, I heard other people in the chat talking about whether or not you could steel man my argument. I feel like you could. Could you steel man my argument real quick?
What do you mean? What do you mean steel man it? I'm not familiar with that term.
What is the argument that I'm making? Like the straw man version of my argument would be the bad, like straw. You know what a straw man is,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Could you restate my argument in a way that I would go, yes, that's my argument.
Yeah, you basically what it sounds like is your standard that you agree with a consensus on is that human flourishing should be the standard, and we can measure it through science. And the reason why it's objective is because you can measure it.
That's pretty good. Yes. And your argument is that because there are a lot of different moral systems in the world and that everybody has different intuitions about what is right and wrong, that morality is subjective.
And different definitions of morality.
Okay.
And
Yes.
that you can see that when people are just taught moral things also, like the gay thing I gave the example of earlier, I was simply
Right.
just taught this. Yeah.
But I'm saying that all of those different ideas can all be traced back to the evolutionary paradigm. I think we understand each other. We just disagree. So
Yeah. No, I agree that a lot of stuff comes from evolution. Like the reason we are the way we are comes from evolution. But
Rohan Jaranad for 100. I don't know what that symbol is. Says if your morality objectively doesn't sustain you and yours through time, is it worth considering beyond your existence and our learning what not to do from it?
I don't know.
So if you're like basically your morality must sustain you over time and your learning.
Here's what I would say. I think that there are aspects of survival that aren't necessarily moral or immoral. I think that you don't need to connect the two, survival and morality, at the same time. I think that you could still you could take things that are going to like it's not immoral for me to I don't know, eat poison or something, right? Like, but I'm not going to eat poison because I'm going to die. Like, there's no morality to that issue of eating poison. It's like, I just know that I know that it will. Well, I guess I could somewhat use that definition of harming myself. But I think there are
suicide is considered immoral in Christianity.
Sure. Yeah. I agree. Yeah, it's fair.
So there are some moral systems where that is consistent.
That when it goes, if you make your standard harm or thriving, sure.
Him's sake for $5 says, if you have to make excuses for the South and Nazis, you might be losing the argument. I think that's aimed to you, Skylar.
Yeah, it's kind of silly. I don't think you understood what I was saying. I was making the argument that it wasn't a battle of ideas. It wasn't the ideas that won. It was military force, military power that beat things out. This is like, and actually when you deal with like negotiation, war is the very last step in negotiation. It's when two parties basically will not concede to anything, and it comes down to who might will make right in that situation. Obviously, I don't agree with that with the Nazis or slavery, but you should be honest with yourselves and understand why the North won. And it wasn't because of an idea. It was the idea. It was because they had the infrastructure and they had the factories and they had the railroad systems.
But you're still
South
making
just
my
had good
argument.
towns.
You're still making my argument, though.
I don't know how I am, but
Because
that's
the
fine.
moral system, because the better moral system will produce more product, more people, more trust, more military might.
Well, no, not necessarily. I mean, the South could have won, kept slavery, and they could have still had plenty of flourishing between white people, and maybe even outflourished what it was. We don't know. We don't have that kind of data. There's no way to kind of measure it. But saying that certain particular, what we would call evil, existed, that doesn't necessarily follow.
You're saying that the North won because they had more resources, and I'm saying that a better moral system will produce more resources. You're making my argument.
Well, no, I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't think that necessarily a good. Well, it depends on how you define good. That's what I'm saying. Like, what is a good moral system, right? If you're just
one
saying,
that
once again, you go
produces
back
more
to
resources.
your subjective definition and how you view morality. I get it. Yes, like in the same way I was arguing earlier that a teacher creates a standard. All right.
But even in the teacher example I gave, I mean, okay.
It depends on
It's
how she defines
subjective.
like the education.
Yeah.
It's objective since she created a system, right?
Cure for
she
cancer.
defined the standard. She defined the standard in which she would measure someone doing well in school. In the same way you're defining through your subjectivity.
In the teacher system, we have one class of kids that finds a cure for cancer. We have another class of kids that creates anarchy in the streets.
You keep missing the point. Like, it isn't about like the system that you've chosen. It's the fact that you chose the system.
Right.
That's the
but
point.
I'm just saying.
I get it. I get it. You're saying that if we follow this model, yes, then this group would thrive more, right? That's not the issue that we're debating. We're debating on the actual thing you've chosen for your standard.
Well, I'm just curious what other standard there could be. I'm curious what other standard
the Christian religion, it would be God as the standard.
Yeah, but that standard is the same standard as, like, that standard relates to thriving. It does.
No,
like, they've developed a moral system where you can live forever. Why would you want to live forever? Because living forever is better.
No.
More life is better than less life.
I mean, very little Christians would say that would be the point. That it's not about. It's about.
It doesn't matter what they would say. It matters what actually happens.
Well, then you're going to have to support that argument with Scripture and actually back that up, because I don't accept
Scripture. Why would Scripture even figure into this conversation?
Because you're talking about the Christian religion, right? And what the
I'm not. I'm talking about.
That's what we were just talking about, Adam.
I'm talking about what moral standard is there.
We were just talking about.
What moral standard is there aside from thriving? What moral standard is there aside from thriving? What metric? What metric is there aside from thriving?
Aside from thriving, again, Adam. I'm not going to repeat myself again. We better move to the next question.
Right. I can't think of one. I would love to think of one, but I can't. Let me know in the chat if you can think of another standard.
Negative.
Okay, we got to go to the next question really quick. First, totally appreciate your question. Brother John, thanks for your question. They said, murder by definition is wrong. Better to ask, is it always wrong to take another life?
I don't think so.
I think they're asking Adam.
What was the question again?
They said, murder by definition is wrong. Better to ask, is it always wrong to take another life? I think there's
obviously. That's why. No, definitely. I think it's not always wrong. We put people to death because they commit heinous acts.
I think for some reason, I think some people interpreted you as like a hardcore deontologist or something. But soft-spoken Satan, thanks for your question. We're going to try to squeeze in one or two before we're done. So sorry about that.
Yes.
That's okay. I have a couple more questions over here too.
But the thing is, I got to wrap up by 11 to keep a promise. I hope you don't.
I will stick around and answer the rest. I will read the rest of my super chats, obviously. So
Sure.
Okay, here we go. Really quick. Stop smoking Satan. They said, for Skylar, if we agree on the definition of morality, can we agree it's about good and bad? It's about good and bad. We can clearly see what's good or bad. Thus, it's objective.
Nah, wah, wah. I don't know.
what is good? I'm curious. I mean, obviously, there's differentiation on what is good at the individual level, but there's surprising amount of consensus on what is good at the social level. So
because we have similarities within a society. Of course, there would be like you would have a society like if you're based on the Constitution here in Western values and Western culture, of course you would have similar values here. Like, but you can easily see when you compare them to another culture that's different, has different values and things like that. They may not be as similar. There's also things that come into play, like when he talks about human beings not wanting to be harmed. A lot of human beings don't want to be hurt. So they kind of go on this boat. Like maybe if we create laws where we make laws that say you can't hurt somebody like this, they may follow it. But
Really quick, just want to ask
Yeah.
one more quick question, and then I want to let people go because I know it's getting late. Lucille Kelly, thanks for your question. They said, am I more likely or less likely to inherit morals which implicitly lead to survival advantages?
yes.
What do you think, Skylar?
I don't know. It depends on the situation. No, I mean there are things that are it really just depends on the situation. What your parents teach you, what are the morals they're teaching you, are you going to thrive from them, and whether that's even the definition of morality that you hold to is thriving. So
Gotcha. Can I do one really quick one? It's 8:59
Please.
in Mountain Time. They said, Adam, can you define a morally good action?
Me?
Yes.
Not killing people, not lying, not committing fraud.
Gotcha.
Well, you must be very proud of yourself.
Thank you very
Keeping
much.
promises.
You got
Do
it.
you have to run, Skylar? Or you got to get out of here?
I've got to keep
Yeah,
a
I gotta
promise.
and I've got to get some sleep. I've been doing this since 8
Okay.
o'clock on my channel. So
We'll
Yeah,
get
I
a
mean,
good night's sleep, man.
just keep you keep doing your thing in the channel. All right, guys, thank you so much. I appreciate you. It's been a fun conversation. All you rap debates out there, thank you. If you haven't seen my stuff, come check it out. Get a lot of good debates and conversations.
That's right.
Peace, my brothers.
Thanks, Skylar.
Love you.
Take
Peace
care.
out.
He is linked in the
Later.
description as mentioned, folks. So appreciate him coming by. And with that, we will say, keep sifting out the reasonable.
Do you have to go? Do you have to go, man?
Yeah, I actually do, and I'm so sorry. about
Why
that.
do you have to go? Come on, I have some super chats to read. Stick around.
Oh man, I totally would.
No!
No,
But I gotta
you can
go.
That's all
Sorry.
right.
So sorry about that. But
Later days.
No deal.
thank you very much, everybody, for being here. Keep sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable.